sure to keep our distance. All right, so I've got our city attorney, Ron Keefe, here. Ron, I have a certificate on behalf of the city of Marquette for you.
Thank you very much, Ron.
Yeah, of course. I have some remarks, and then we'll have city manager Mike Angeli do the same. So just a few things I wanted to say about Ron's service here, and kind of, I know, awkward, we're trying to stay 6 feet apart, but also, you know, have them here. Ron, wanted to thank you for joining us this evening in person. It's really great to see you again. I know it's been kind of a strange year. You probably don't remember, but you and I first met back in 2015 when I first joined the Housing Commission. And we were in this very room, and you were telling us all about what things to watch out for, especially with email, and how to protect yourself, and how to be a good commissioner. And at that time, I really appreciated your guidance, and yeah, you did get it right at that point, at least as far as I know. And then in 2017, I got to know you a little bit better as I joined the commission when I was appointed to the commission. And I've got a few things I wanted to say about that. Your steady guidance over the last several years has been instrumental in helping me navigate many challenging situations. As a commissioner and now as mayor, you've provided sound guidance for the smallest of concerns up to the most difficult of tasks. I have been incredibly fortunate to have your expertise and common sense approach to rely on. You're an intelligent, trustworthy, and balanced lawyer, advisor, and friend. Your important work on the City of Marquette property sales, contract negotiations, legal disputes, policy implementation, and ordinance changes have helped the City of Marquette to become and remain a more vibrant, fiscally secure, and growing community. You have personally contributed to making our wonderful community an even better place to live, own a business, and raise a family. Thank you for your countless contributions to the City of Marquette. I hope you know you'll be dearly missed, but I'm also very glad you're able to retire and spend more time with your family. I sincerely hope the next stage of your life brings you all you seek and more.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay, we'll go ahead with city manager next, and I think I can just keep this up here. You're not done yet, Ron.
No, he's not. Well, Ron, we took up a collection for you, and Sean wanted to buy you to scratch off lottery tickets, but I thought you deserved better than that. But we have a tradition in the police department, when someone retires, that we get them a gift. And so you don't have to open this in front of everybody. It's a flask that's engraved with your years of service to the city. There's a card with a gift card to Snowball Books, because we know you enjoy Snowball Books. And Dennis Stakowitz provided you with a bottle of bourbon, which you can probably drink in the chambers. But anyway,
thank you so much.
We are going to miss you, Ron. You've been a wonderful asset and a great friend and counsel. So, and thanks for coming in tonight. It's been really nice.
Thank you, Ron. All right, hang tight just a minute, everyone, and I will get situated back.
Do you want me to say anything?
If you'd like to say something, we would love for you to, Ryan. Just go ahead right there so they're able to see you.
Okay, thank you very much, Your Honor. First of all, I just want to thank the mayor for very kind words, and also Mike Angeli. It's been a pleasure to work with both of you, to be honest. In fact, you've been amazing during this pandemic to guide the city through it, and we're grateful. And on behalf of Suzanne, I want to extend that gratitude, thanks to you. And of course, Mike, it's been 5 years with Mike now, and on me as an interim city manager at different times, but it's been wonderful to work with Mike as well. And we've done a lot of projects together. And of course, the staff, what can you say, Dick, the finest staff I've ever worked with. So we're very fortunate to have the team that we have on at City Hall and around the city. And of course, the commission, too. I'd be remiss if I didn't thank the commission. It's been a pleasure working with each and every one of you. Didn't get as much time with Commissioner Hanley and Commissioner Meyer, but it's one of those things. I wish you all the very best. If I could just take a second to back up. When I started in 2005, and you think these are dark days because of the pandemic and all the stuff we're going through. When I started in 2005, there were 3 sitting commissioners. they appointed me as acting city manager, although I'm not sure what that meant, because I don't think I require Senate confirmation. I think it's just the city commission, but they appointed me as acting city manager for a period, and I can't remember how long, but we had 3 commissioners. They hadn't had a city attorney in 7 years. We couldn't sell real estate, we couldn't pass an ordinance, we couldn't do anything that requires more than, requires 4 or 5 votes. But we got through that period. And then at the end of my tenure as city attorney, we're facing this pandemic, and this is the first time I've been in a meeting live since February. It's been almost a year. So I'm dearly going to miss this place. I made too many good friends along the way. And that's the hardest part of leaving. It's about time, I suppose. I'm sure you'll wonder when I was going to leave, but it's about time I left. I will miss you all, and thank you very much. And thank you again, Your Honor, for those very warm words. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Hang tight, though. I know we've got commissioners that are going to want to say a few things, so I'll just let you stay there in the hot seat a little while longer. And commissioners, let's just go ahead in alphabetical order. I won't call on names. I know you guys are pretty smart with the alphabet. We'll start with Commissioner Bonville.
Well, thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Ron, for your many years of service to the city. I think that is pretty incredible to think that, when your, service with the city began, we were in a pretty desperate situation. It was certainly, as you said, it's sort of dark times right now, but, we're in a much better position thanks to your leadership, thanks to the leadership of many others of the city. And I think that everybody in Marquette should be incredibly grateful to you for putting in all the time and the effort that you have into serving our community. I think that certainly you planted the seeds, and we're now resting in the shade of, those trees that you planted many years ago. So thank you. And I think your retirement's well earned. I hope you enjoy it. And I hope you enjoy the flask as well.
Thank you.
And I think I will go next, being the next alphabetical order. Ron, you've had a lot of years of service, and I feel like we are just the lucky ones to see you at the end of your city career, but there should be a long line of previous commissioners who should have an opportunity to kind of roast you tonight. One of the things that comes to my mind as I think back of like even the last 5 or 6 years is you guiding the city through $750 million in developments. And, I don't know how many documents that took or how many times you had to have your eyes and your hands on them and the complexity of them. But thank you for doing that. I think your knowledge of municipal law will be greatly missed, as well as your ability to provide the solid evidence when faced with potentially controversial issues. So I always find that you're kind, respectful, and pragmatic. And, thank you for all of that. And thank you for partnering and mentoring with Suzanne and leaving us in good hands. And I hope you use that Snowbound Books certificate well. And if you ever need some reading recommendations, I'm standing by.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Davis. Of course, I've known you for a very, very long time. Not so long on the commission, but we go way back, don't we?
Yeah, we do.
And it's been a pleasure working with you and with Dave, and just knowing the two of you for so long. Thank you for those words.
All right, I think I'm next. I haven't had a whole lot of time working with you, Ron, but even in the short time that I've been on the commission, you've been helpful every single time I've reached out. And a lot of times it's helping me to learn exactly what we can and can't do, which is super. Your knowledge is something that you can't, it's not going to be replaced quickly. You are wonderful as a city attorney, and Suzanne will do great, I'm sure, but she's got a lot of work to do to be like you. Thank you very much for your help, and I hope you have a great time in retirement.
Thank you much, Commissioner. I wish that we had more time together too, but it was nice getting to know you for that short period of time.
All right, I believe I'm next. Ron, you and I, obviously, we haven't got a chance to work very long together either. And, you coming on with the city back 2005, I was probably only 7 or 8 years old. So you and I don't go far back either. But it's clear from not only some of the comments from my colleagues, but also the kind of history that comes with it, the amount of profound impact you've had with this community. And I'm very thankful that you've spent so much of your professional life just dedicating yourself to Marquette, and I really appreciate that. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. There's probably not a greater honor that I've ever had to represent the city as an attorney. It's a special position and special obligation and responsibility. So thank you for that.
I was waiting for Commissioner Hill.
Okay. I again echo all the comments that my fellow commissioners have made and how much we appreciate your leadership and guidance over the years. I'll leave you with a thought that the internet makes it possible to communicate with lots of different people now. And so when you're ready, if you want to share some of your stories, of which I've gotten to hear a few, and they are pretty remarkable, it'd be a wonderful thing for the history of the city to have you tell some of those stories. The good ones and the not so good ones, I think would really be beneficial. And I hope that we find a way to do that, because there's some really great experiences that you've had uniquely that I think would be wonderful for everyone to hear. And thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Commissioner Hill. That's very kind of you. I'll be available. I'll make myself available.
I certainly, I think have worked from the commissioners with Ron longer than anybody else, but I've got to relate that the first time I met Ron, I was a newly elected commissioner, and finding him in the hallway in City Hall, I pulled him aside and I asked him, as our city attorney, what he would charge the city to answer 3 simple questions. And he said $1,000. And I said, wow, that's awfully expensive, isn't it? So Ron looked at me then and he said, it certainly is. What's your third question?
I don't remember that.
You don't remember that? Well, your memory might be a little, yes, but I've known Ron for perhaps 20 years, and certainly it's been a very enjoyable experience. And by the way, some folks may not be aware, but from 2007 to 2008, Ron was the president of the Michigan Bar Association. And when you think of that as an accolade and really a good housekeeping seal of approval on a city attorney, that was it. And when you realize that's our attorney from Marquette, Michigan, way up in the Upper Peninsula. So I think that certainly is a tremendous accolade for Ron. But he's at the epitome of his professionalism. Not only does he know the law, certainly, but he gives it to you straight and with a very much appreciated common sense approach. So even commissioners can understand that, I think. But because of his skilled guidance, we've avoided costly lawsuits throughout his time providing legal advice. He's really guided us through some very difficult situations, and I think he alluded to some of them, as did, I think, Commissioner Davis too, when she had her opportunity to speak. But I must note that the city does not bend, break, or ignore the law, because Ron would never allow that to happen. He was there as the constant watchdog. And he certainly kept the city and their taxpayers out of trouble. And I certainly attribute that directly to what Ron was doing. And from my years of service to Marquette, Ron has proven himself to be a major asset to the government management team. He served our taxpayers extraordinarily well, and his departure will leave a huge hole in City Hall. But thank you again for all you've done for us and for your help over a long time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. It's very kind of you to say those things. I don't know what I've done, but I've done my best. I guess that's all I could do in the last 15 years. But thank you very much, everyone. Appreciate it.
I think we'll just finish off with a nice round of applause and a congratulations for Ron.
Wait, Frank Barrow's calling in.
Great, I'm gonna go ahead and shut my camera off and move back over to the regular seat.
Yeah, strike everything that was this.
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, well, thank you everyone for your nice comments about Ron. We certainly appreciate his service to the city of Marquette, and I'm hopeful that we'll be able to have him back as a guest from time to time. Maybe you'd like to come and make some public comment once you're no longer the city attorney.
I don't know.
There's a session coming up in a few minutes of public comment, so. All right, so up next, we are moving on to item number 2 under presentations. We have a presentation by the Planning Commission. Joy Cardillo, the chair of the Planning Commission, is joining us this evening. Thank you, Joy, for joining us. And I think you have a presentation. We saw it ahead of time. If you want to go ahead and share it, and go ahead whenever you're ready. Thank you.
Okay, can you guys see my presentation?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you, Jenna. And I guess I just want to add from the Planning Commission perspective, our appreciation for Ron O'Keefe. He's been a real, someone we really are able to turn to when we have questions, from planning issues to the development of the LDC. And he's just been a very reassuring voice to help us know what we can and can't do, and very appreciative of everything he's done. So thank you for having me tonight. I'm here to present the Planning Commission report for, I believe this covers the last 18 months, but the Planning Commission has in fact been operating on a regular schedule, mostly via Zoom, and we have managed to conduct business pretty much as usual. You can see here, this is a screenshot from our Planning Commission. We've had a full roster of 9 commissioners, which has been great, and it's led to a lot of great discussion. A lot of you have seen this before, but just a very brief history on the Planning Commission. City Planning Board was established in 1947, pursuant to the Public Act 285 of 1931. Prior to this time, the land development was largely uncoordinated. The first task of the Planning Board was to prepare a citywide plan in the public interest. And from there, we have sort of the whole history of the Planning Commission up until now. So just a brief recap on the responsibilities of the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission, we are responsible for development and update of the community master plan, which is sort of constantly in our minds as we are doing development of the land development code. I think our most recent actual update was the end of 2018. And the reason is because we were basically, the redevelopment of the land development code sort of consumed the next period of time. And a lot of that was actual implementation of things from the community master plan, which we were able to somewhat turn into a reality. Other responsibilities are review of development proposals on private property to ensure conformance with land development code. And this is just the sort of basic nuts and bolts of what we do. In addition to that, we do a review of street reconstruction projects and other public improvement projects. This involves trying to ensure conformance to the community master plan. So trying to create uniformity in terms of the streets, widths, parking, the design of the streets, so that we have a sort of consistency throughout the city, but also marrying that with the specific conditions of every individual street, site, and location. So kind of tailoring, our overall concepts with the realities that exist. And in addition to that, we make recommendations on zoning matters, and as well as the annual capital improvement plan program, which we submit to the City Commission. Currently, we have been very fortunate to have a full roster of 9 commissioners. I believe we are losing 3 commissioners. 2 will be leaving, and Commissioner Andres, who's been a wonderful asset, and probably the longest member we've had, is terming out in February. So hopefully we will find replacements for them. And if you know of anybody, send them our way. But so that'll bring us down to 6, which is, on the smaller side, and we'd certainly like to have more, but we can still conduct business at 6 people. Again, this is just showing our full roster and what a typical meeting looks like, not too dissimilar from yours. And overall, I think it's been pretty successful. We've been able to have robust discussions, and we've been able to engage with the public. And I don't think we've had any real delays because of it. So we're fortunate that the staff has really been able to help us with the technology to keep that going. A quick summary of our 2020 meetings. We had 20 regular meetings were held, and 4 were canceled. Roughly a 2-hour meetings length, sometimes going quite a bit over that and sometimes less. 15 meetings included a work session and 9 were for LDC amendments. And on average, we had 7 members. And we've, as I said, we've had Zoom and YouTube, which have been generally quite effective. And then this is just a quick rundown of the actual cases we've had in 2020, a planned unit development, rezoning cases, 2 land development code amendments, which, you know, was sort of the necessary product of this large revamp of the land development code. You know, we've just been working to refine it and address the specific issues that have come up as a result of that. 7 street reconstruction projects recommendations, 15 special land use permit requests, which involved public hearings, 20 site plan reviews at a non-administrative level, which means that they came before the Planning Commission. And then we have our major accomplishments of the past 18 months. That includes our 3 land development code amendments. The first amendment was ratified, I believe, at the end of 2019. I think that was the first one that was done since the land development code was enacted. And so a lot of that was bookkeeping clarifications, just to sort of catch things that maybe fell through the cracks, as well as I know we did a lot with outdoor recreation in those amendments. The second amendment was done in February of 2020. That was the marijuana regulation and zoning amendments. And so I think you guys were all involved at the time when we did that. Well, not all of you actually, but that just involved, you know, the specifics of zoning for the marijuana, which, you know, we're seeing as they have their special land use permits for the different retail establishments that we've had. Then our third amendment has been sent to the City Commission. I think we've had a joint commission meeting on it, but it has yet to be ratified. I think it's happening for you. You guys will be ratifying that. We're talking about ratifying at least in January. And just, you know, a couple of items in there that I wanted to point out that we feel good about. One is the easing of getting a license for outdoor food and beverage in the central business district. It's moving from being a special land use to a permitted use, so that should hopefully make it easier for our restaurants to have outdoor seating. You know, we've really had housing forefront, and so there's a couple of things we've been able to do just in this latest amendment that we think will contribute to this larger conversation about promoting housing at all different scales in the community. One is that we're proposing to raise the building height in the central business district to 74 feet from 60 feet. Another one is the accessory dwelling unit code, which was a new piece of code that we had put in, which provides, you know, just another vehicle for housing, wherein basically somebody can turn their garage or create a, you know, separate dwelling unit on their property that would provide more housing stock of a different scale. And so we've kind of we dipped our toe into that carefully, and then, you know, we try to work a bit slowly on the Planning Commission because it's sort of once it's out there, it's hard to take it back. So we went slowly with the ADU, but we found that we weren't getting as much people taking us up, essentially, people doing them as much as possible, because we were essentially limiting it to family members and not being rental. So we've now transitioned that, so you'll be able to rent your ADUs, which we think will have people maybe do more of them. So we feel good about that. Additionally, in this third amendment, there's been some easing of the administration requirements for doing sort of the 5 to 20 unit multifamily residential units. So that'll just sort of ease the barriers into that sort of housing stock. So we're sort of trying to look at all the different pieces and what can we do as a planning commission within our scope to promote housing. And then in addition to that, we've had just other clarifications to the food production parts, home offices, solar panel regulations, and parking. And so those are all just things that we're kind of continually trying to finesse, make more easy for the community to take advantage of these things, and just work within the specific constraints that we see through people's actual applications. Our other accomplishments, I included the special land use permit standards for the recreational marijuana. That was that second amendment. We conducted all of our business requests during the pandemic with no requests delayed. And then we basically assisted with the DDA's downtown plan process, which, you know, we found has been really great for them and us to really be on the same page and talk about these issues that we share in common, and how can sort of the things that we do and the things that they do support common purpose. These. Then our concerns for next year and beyond. The first is mobility is something that we're constantly thinking about. We want to begin working on an intercity transit route. I mean, this is something that's not a specific just to the planning commission. You know, this requires coordination between Marquette as well as the city commission, but it's something we kind of always like to bring back to the table to say, you know, this is something we think would be great to keep pushing forward. And then just kind of keep reiterating that winter mobility is not great for people without cars. What can we do to reinforce that, or to make that better? You know, and something we kind of go back to is that in 2004, the community master plan had a piece in it about being the premier walkable winter city. And so we're just always thinking about ways that we can reinforce that, and make legislation, code, regulations that promote that. And so increased mobility options, and also reducing car parking issues, which goes back to kind of constantly finessing our parking requirements. Another concern that we have is development traffic and parking in the Lakeshore Boulevard Scenic Corridor. This is a piece of the community that I think there's strong feelings about. There's a lot of traffic that happens at the beaches there. There's a lot of property sort of on the western side of the Lakeshore that has potential for development. And I think the Planning Commission would just like to sort of be ahead of that and have a strong intention for the development that happens there, so that when we do have people looking to develop, we can be a good partner to them. And so one thing we would like to see is potentially a new study for that corridor, which is basically be going from sort of the lighthouse north on Lakeshore Boulevard. And again, affordable housing and housing affordability in the city is something that, you know, again, it's not just a Planning Commission issue, but it is something that the Planning Commission can have an impact on. So for the sphere that we are able to look at it, we want to sort of be in coordination with our other boards to promote that. And then climate change. Our state plans for carbon, Governor Whitmer has put out a carbon neutrality plan for 2050, and that's something, you know, we would like to do our part to be a part of, and to encourage the city commission to sort of take that seriously, and to the extent that we can be a part of that. So our specific recommendations regarding mobility and public transportation would be to conduct a joint work session of the Planning Commission, the City Commission, and Marquette on a 3rd Street NMU hospital route. And I'm just going to sneak ahead to this slide. So this is a potential 30-minute transit route that's been developed. And it's something that we in the Planning Commission think would be a really great asset. It really works to sort of promote our city's health in terms of having people be able to move around without having a car. And so a lot of work's been put into this already. And so we would just like to keep this moving forward from our end. And then we've got our implementation of bike routes plan we would like to have that move into phase 2. I believe phase 1 has been done, which was a lot of the signage. I believe it's halfway through. They've got half of the signs up for phase 1, which was the signage. And so we would like to see the rest of those signs completed, as well as phase 2, which would be completing the signs and then the street marking. And I believe that mostly gets done in conjunction with street maintenance. And so just sort of keeping our eyes on that as a piece that happens in conjunction with the public works street maintenance projects. Lakeshore Boulevard long range planning. Again, we would like to seek options to begin a new planning effort for the development along North Lakeshore Boulevard. Again, it's just something that the community really feels, we always see a strong response when things come there. And so we would love to just be able to sort of look at it holistically. There's your route. Additional recommendations regarding housing would be, we know that the ad hoc committee is happening right now. I believe it's going to be wrapping up in June, I think Dave Census told us. And so, we're just hoping that the product of their findings can be coordinated with the work that we do. And so we'll be able to hopefully use a lot of the feedback and information that we get from them to help address these issues. And so our hope is that the next LZC update, whenever that comes, we'll be able to incorporate some of the intention from that. As far as climate change action, like I said, we're constantly working to just make our codes make sense, be very usable, user-friendly, lower the barriers for our energy efficiency options. But in addition to that, we'd like to begin work on reaching targets or have the City Commission think about reaching targets for the Michigan Healthy Climate Plan and full carbon neutrality by 2050. We realize this is a big overarching concept, but just sort of looking from our city perspective, what pieces can we do to reinforce that? And then one other sort of smaller thing, but to really promote and incentivize the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions. One suggestion from the Planning Commission, in addition to our efforts for making the sort of regulatory end, would be to strike permit fees or greatly reduce permit fees as a way to incentivize people to institute residential solar power systems. So that was one thought that we've been talking about, and we thought that would be something that would happen on the City Commission and not from the Planning Commission. So we just wanted to bring that up here today. And that is my talk. So I would love it if you guys have any questions, please let me know.
Well, thank you, Chair Cordillo. Much appreciated. I think it's amazing the amount of work that you have done already and you continue to do. And it's, I think, exciting to see some of the projects that are on the horizon. I'll go ahead and let some of the other commissioners chime in here. Commissioners, discussion points. Go ahead and raise your hand if you have anything you'd like to ask or comment on. I'm looking for hands here, but I can only see about 3 people at a time. I see Commissioner Davis. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, Joy. When I think of the Planning Commission, I'm always impressed of the complexity of the knowledge you need to have in order to serve on that commission. And, reading the very detailed minutes gives me and probably the rest of us commissioners a greater understanding when items come before the commission. And so I want you to know that you really do have a huge impact on the city. And I really don't have any questions, but I just want to let you know I appreciate the list of concerns that you want to address in the coming year. It's an impressive list and I'm fully supportive of it. And thank you so much to all of you for the knowledge you hold and for the many hours in serving on the city.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Hill?
Yeah, thank you. Hi. I echo Commissioner Davis in the quality of the work and the amount of work. It's really, truly bringing us forward in the ways that we hope planning will to look at where we are and then how could we move forward given many of the great changes that are happening that are really outside of our control. And it's that balance between what can we control and what do we need to adjust to or consider in moving those things forward. And I think I really appreciate the work sessions and the opportunity to have those conversations, because it's very much a question of evolving and we're bringing our different perspectives. And I will just close. I agree with I think the recommendations look, they align with where I see us needing to work, and as a city, and coming out of COVID, coming out of tremendous changes that no one would have predicted, a year ago, and that we have the ability to start thinking about these. I really, really appreciate that some of that work has been done at this committee level. So we have another whole set of people who are bringing these issues to us. So I'm very excited about the opportunity to work on these next year. And just looking again, I was actually, in fact, going to address some of these in my comments tonight. That's how, and we did not, there was no coordination before we talked. So I really applaud your work and really appreciate that you were able to not only deal with what we've been dealing with, but to have the time and thought to think about what comes next and what comes after as we move out of COVID. So thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hanley?
Hi, I just wanted to echo what everyone else is saying and thank you for the wonderful presentation. It was extremely knowledgeable and helpful for a new commissioner on there to see exactly what's been going on and what we want moving forward. One of the main things that I took from that is I really like the idea of striking the permit fees for solar panels. I think that would be an amazing way to start moving us forward and helping us with reducing carbon emissions and things like that. It's things like that that your commission, or that the planning commission, brings to us that help us to do our job and better the city, and I appreciate it. And thank you for your time on this.
Commissioner Bonzo?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And Joy, and everybody on the Planning Commission, thank you so much for all of your work, and also the city staff who assist the Planning Commission day in and day out, and really make all of this work, all these plans and goals that you set achievable. I've had the pleasure to work with members of our planning staff as well, as the chair of the Ad Hoc Housing Committee, and it's been a real pleasure. I know that they're currently working on our January report, which I'm sure will be interesting to all of you. And I love the idea of doing a joint work session between the Planning Commission and the Ad Hoc Housing Committee to focus on housing at some point before the next round of LDC updates. I think that would make a lot of sense. And I was actually hoping to do something along those lines already. So thank you for bringing that up. And also just wanted to briefly thank you for the work that you're doing on housing already, and also the work that you're doing on climate change and renewable energy. I think the changes with regards to solar panels, we're going to be doubling the capacity that's permitted for sort of our micro generation, people just putting solar panels on their roof or in their backyard. I think that's great. I like the idea of waiving the fees, the permitting fees as well, for small scale solar installations. And as far as housing, I'm excited to see that we're starting to kind of ease up a little bit on our restrictions on accessory dwelling units, which I do think represent a major opportunity to expand our supply of missing middle housing in the city. So hopefully that will be the first of a couple of changes to our code with regards to ADUs. But thank you so much for your work, and looking forward to working with you moving forward.
Any other commissioner? Commissioner Stonehill?
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you for the opportunity. Great presentation. Really appreciated it. Really appreciate the great work that the Planning Commission does. It grinds slowly and finely, and that's really what they should be doing. I'm very excited to see the comments made about trying to get a bus line back. And that, if we can get that to happen, that is just going to be a terrific achievement. And in part, as you know, it also takes a step forward towards trying to become carbon neutral, it helps us environmentally terrifically, perhaps more so than anything else that we can directly do in the city. So we've got to keep that one on the radar. I will ask a question though. What is the Lakeshore Boulevard Scenic Corridor?
What is it? It's the Lakeshore, the scenic corridor is it's basically the area north of the lighthouse, from the Lakeshore Boulevard, from the lighthouse basically up to Presque Isle. Up to
Presque Isle, okay. I'll be curious to see what you guys can come up with in terms of looking at that from a planning perspective, especially in terms of your identification of the problems we have with parking and the popularity of that whole area. So that's going to be a different angle to it. But thank you very much for what you're doing. I appreciate, again, hearing your comments. I look forward to an opportunity for a joint session.
Thank you.
Commissioner Mayer?
Thank you, Your Honor. Joy, I would also like to thank you and the Planning Commission for all your hard work with this. And I do want to just echo the gratitude for the focus on both small businesses, renewable energy, affordable housing, and public transportation, all of that being incorporated in this as objectives moving forward. And it's truly great to see that. So thank you.
Thank you. And I just want to say, I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, thank you again to, the staff makes our jobs really, really easy. Dave and Andrea do so much legwork, provide us with so much information and context. I had the opportunity, I forget if it was this year or last year, to go up to Houghton and do a training seminar for planning commissioners. And I spent time with people from other local communities, other planning commissioners, and, just realizing the resources we have with Dave and Andrea doing so much of the legwork and research and context for us. We really are very grateful, and it made me very aware of how lucky we are to have that as much work as it is. They're doing a lot of it for us, which we're very, very appreciative of. And Sean has been great as well, helping us with facilitating all the meetings. So I just want to make sure we recognize them.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Joy. I certainly appreciate you joining us tonight and sharing the good work the Planning Commission continues to do. I think it was a refreshing take to be able to see the planning, the Planning Commission does, looking into the future, mapping out what some of the tasks are that you're going to be looking at over the next year or several years. And I think you've got quite a bit of support for those tasks from the Commission, and we certainly look forward to hearing what you come up with and working. We're happy to work with you, and I think that joint work session sounds great. I know many commissioners have been talking about public transportation, housing, all these things that you bring up tonight, and certainly appreciate that. And I know Commissioner Stonehouse especially has been hounding us on this bus route, which is much needed. And thank you for continuing to beat that drum, Commissioner Stonehouse and Chair Cardillo. And let's see if we can get that moving in 2021 or shortly thereafter. Appreciate you joining us tonight, and we look forward to hearing from you again soon. Thank you, Joy.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Mayor Smith. Thank you, everybody.
All right, on to our third and final presentation of the evening. We've got our City Clerk, Kyle Whitney, presenting on the election board. Kyle, go ahead whenever you're ready. Thanks for putting this together. I was going to say joining us, but you're here every meeting, so.
You're very welcome, Mayor. Yeah, my presentation is not going to be as, I guess, impactful from an infrastructure standpoint or as emotional as a longtime city employee retiring, but I will do what I can. 1 second, and I'm going to try to share one thing on my screen here, see if that works. Can everybody see that? And boom. All right. This is not the computer I typically use. So tonight, we just wanted to take a moment to do an automatic presentation about the election board in the city of Marquette. This is one of several boards, advisory boards and committees, technically, that the city has. This is one of the rare ones that is established under statute. So according to state law, the city elections board is formed. The members are the clerk, the attorney, and the assessor, unless the local charter says otherwise. And our local charter says that our election board is 4 at-large members appointed by the city commission, chaired by the city clerk, makes 5, and then the liaison for that board is our deputy clerk, Rachel Quayle. They have a fairly limited scope of what they do throughout the year. Their main goals, obviously the city charter section and state law references. Their main goals are to certify local candidates for elections. So those are candidates who filed in time by the state mandated deadline in order to run for the Board of Light and Power or for the City Commission. That is their only direct involvement with certifying candidates for election. In those cases, the candidates, as you all know, there are certain requirements, basic requirements you have to meet. Then you have to submit a number of signatures or $100. And in our case, staff will verify the signatures and then present the candidates to the election board. They essentially check our work at that point and then certify those candidates for city ballots. They also take action to appoint election inspectors, those members of our community or area that work the elections for us in the polls or the AV counting boards, and then they actually conduct public accuracy tests of election equipment. And you can see that's a full year of work for the election board right there. So the April meeting is immediately following that April candidate deadline, and that's where they verify those candidates. And then you get the same pair of meetings prior to every election. So for the August election in 2021, the August primary, they're going to have a July 8th meeting where they would appoint those workers for the upcoming August election. And then just a couple of weeks prior, they have a test of the election equipment where they actually verify the accuracy of the machines that we'll be using on election day. And then the same cycle again leading up to the November election. Obviously, if there are special elections called school board elections, we will change, we'll call some special meetings for those purposes, but it's again, the same 2 standard meetings for every election. I did want to kind of use this presentation. I'm not saying the election board doesn't do anything. They're a very integral part of our elections process, but I kind of wanted to just give a brief update on the November election while we're here. Prop 3, which I've talked to everybody about in 2018, was adopted statewide. There's a number of changes. Straight party ticket voting is going to be on every general November ballot. Automatic voter registration, you can register to vote up to and on election day, cast AV ballots, absentee ballots without a reason. And there's also a provision in that now in the state constitution that says there will be post-election audits following elections. That's handled by the Bureau of Elections. They're doing it in a couple of different ways. One of them is like a large-scale statistical audit to verify after certification, just to gauge essentially the accuracy of the count. We can talk a little more about that if anybody cares. And then there are also specific local audits that are done at random. And that's allegedly the state basically draws precincts out of a hat statewide. And then they send either someone from the county or someone from the state to conduct an audit of an individual local precinct. Following November, we actually had an audit of City Precinct 1. So that includes the in-person voting and the absentee ballots from Precinct 1. Some representatives from the county clerk came over and basically poured through all of our materials, checked our work. They actually, in that process, go through and count the ballots that are in the sealed ballot bags to verify that the numbers match the numbers reported on the tapes at the end of the night. I'll say everything in that process went swimmingly. There were no questions or issues that came up there. This is proposal 3 in a nutshell. These are, the charts look very similar, but you see ballots sent absentee in November of 2016 and 2018. That November 2018 number was easily the most we'd ever sent in the city of Marquette for absentee ballots. It was I think 2,300 even. And then March was higher than could be expected, I guess. And then obviously several things coming together, COVID, the changes to state law, the Secretary of State's office on a state level began taking some action to get absentee ballot applications out to people who might not be expecting them, hadn't specifically requested them. And the follow-up to that was a huge uptick in our absentee ballots. You see here in August, we had that really high number, but then, like 80% were returned. November was a different story. We had a much higher number and they almost all came back. So this is just the numbers. 97% of those absentee ballots came back in November. 70% of our voters, registered voters, voted in November, and almost 70% of those voting voted absentee. In total, that was almost 50% of our registered population voted absentee. And again, that's just kind of a highlight of, what led to that, in my estimation. This was interesting. It's not integral in any way, I guess, but the bars here represent the registered voter population in that demographic. And then the dark bar is the number that voted. And then this line tracks to the right-hand column with the turnout by demographic. And so just moving forward, I joke with the members of our absent voter counting boards that we're like 3 big elections running now where we've had this counting board established. We have people that are working it, and I feel like they just get sacks and sacks of mail thrown at them all day. Essentially, they're very busy on election day, and then we take several different actions in the lead up to the next big election. And I always joke that we end up, increasing our capacity, our workers, our machines by 50%, and then the number of ballots that they get increases by 60%. And it's just more friends that are with them during the day when they get swamped. We're again going to try to get out in front of that moving forward. And I think that the rate of increase that we've seen for those absentee ballots, that rate of increase is going to drop off. But I think the numbers are going to stay high, the total numbers, because people have the option of being added to what's called our permanent absentee list. That is you requesting from our office every election, you would like an application to vote absentee. So that number was 1,500, roughly under 1,500 in November of 19. So every election, we would send 1,500 people in the city an application asking if they wanted to vote absentee. Outside of that, people could come in on their own. They could put themselves on that list. But if you're getting that application, it's very likely you're going to get an absentee ballot. Now that list has tripled. It's more than tripled. It's 5,000 people now in the city of Marquette are going to get that application every time we have an election. So obviously that's more work every election, but it's also going to lead to more absentee ballots forever, probably. That's going to be, it's going to lead to us restructuring, I think, the absent voter counting board to an extent. We're going to be looking at additional machines, restructuring some of our workforce, and trying to get them in a position to handle a heavy flow of ballots a little better. I'll say in the grand scheme of things, context of the state and the nation, I think we did a very good job. We did have Election Tuesday bled into Election Wednesday, but we all went home before the sun came up. So I think that was way better than it could have been. And one of the things that we've talked about a lot at the commission level is our satellite office on Northern's campus. That was something that we set up leading up to the November election. The idea being that in the 2-week window leading up to the election now, voters can still register to vote. They can still get an absentee ballot, but they need a good amount of additional information. They need to prove their residency. The process is longer. The paperwork is heavier. and a lot of them like to do it on election day. So as you can see, we set up this, a lot of them are also campus voters. They're NMU students or college age students. And we kind of got swamped in March with those voters. So we set up a satellite office on campus to try to reach some of that population ahead of time and draw down those same day registration numbers. And on the flip side, that gave us an opportunity to train some short-term workers who were in the office for a month. They worked that satellite office. They learned how to do that process. They learned how to register people and get them ready to vote. And they did that, 120 times or so. And then on election day, 152 people registered to vote. And as opposed to March, when we kind of got flooded and surprised, we had a setup, we had people trained who were able to help us with that. Again, just some additional work. That was the goal. We had 2 aides working 30-ish hours a week, and you could register, request a ballot, return a ballot. We had drop boxes in the city for the first time this year for ballots or balloting materials. I heard, no complaints, nothing but good came of that. I will say, I think Northern's, the office at Northern was a more popular drop box location than the physical drop box we put at the service center in North Marquette. However, the hours were limited, and that drop box in North Marquette at the service center provided a 24-hour option for people to drop materials off as well. And kind of the last thing, you guys had, as a city commission, had approved the Center for Tech and Civic Life grant that the city received. It is a no match grant, almost $16,000. We've gone through a solid amount of it. It says real estate costs, that was rental for the satellite office, staffing and materials for some of that stuff. Not a whole lot of education necessarily. We did increase some of our social media outreach. We bought PPE for everybody. There was a large uptick, obviously, in absentee balloting and voting equipment. There was signage new signage was purchased for the precincts that can be used moving forward with that money. And based on how we reconfigure the absent voter counting board, we may be using some of that money for machines and hardware and furniture moving forward. The project period goes through December 31st, but they are open, they said, to an extension for a few months if you need that to expend some of it on equipment costs and things like that. And that is pretty much all I've got, but I'm definitely available for questions. Anybody has them?
Is that all, Kyle?
That is it.
I'm teasing. That was information packed. Wow.
I tried to go fast. Apologies.
I know you've been quite busy this year. I'll go ahead and let some other commissioners get things started, but I've got a few things I want to say as well. Mayor Pro Tem Hill, how about you go ahead?
3 questions. I also wanted to note that you actually testified to the state legislature about the need for city clerks at the local level in smaller communities to need some extra time, given the changes that we knew had started to come from Prop 3 and the great increase we had. I wanted to thank you for that and ask if there's any update that you're aware of on what would happen for 2021 to help with this tremendous amount of ballots that we need to process absentee.
I don't have any current real updates, I guess. The idea at the time was that municipalities, as you mentioned, with more than 25,000 residents, those clerks' offices would have the ability to start the day before to start preparing some of those absentee ballots, not actually tabulating them, but getting them open and recorded, essentially. The legislature was told by a group of clerks at that point that they were very thankful to have that option, but they didn't think it would be enough. While I agree with that, it also didn't give us any ability. There are a couple of bills currently still in committee that would impact, implementing absent voter counting boards throughout the state, a couple of bills that would give us an ability to change the size of our, like change the boundaries of our precincts and the number of voters in precincts with the idea that more people are voting absentee. So you don't need as much floor space for voters, but those, as far as I know, are still in committee.
Thank you. That's interesting. And then in terms of the costs, I think, I remember we talked about paying for stamps on the absentee ballots, which I just, a quick update on that, because it sounded like I know like with me, I put mine in the Dropbox, so I didn't need a stamp. But then, and didn't we also get money from the state to help cover some of these costs? And really at the bottom of that is, do you feel prepared for next year budget-wise, and might we need more funding, or you feel like you're in good shape?
Yeah, so thank you for the question, Mayor Pro Tem Hill. The reimbursement request, the state did offer to pay if we wanted to send out pre-posted envelopes with absentee ballots in them. The request for that, it ended up being $4,200, something like that, that we spent to pre-post those envelopes. This was, all things considered, a very strange election cycle. I'm sure you're aware. And so I don't think it was a good data stream to see how utilized that is. I will say a large number of people, obviously we had more absentee ballots than we've ever had in the past. I think a large percentage of those people in a different climate perhaps would have actually returned them by mail, but a lot of them came in via Dropbox or dropped off in person, because I mean, several people told us they just didn't feel comfortable mailing a ballot. So a lot of that prepaid postage didn't get used. I think more would get used in an average election, but I don't know what that looks like. As far as costs moving forward, I think that I'm comfortable with the budget for 2021. I say that because 2021 is not going to be a heavy election cycle, I guess. I will say, depending on how things go, we might be able to spin some of that grant money we talked about into purchasing a couple of additional tabulators that would help alleviate some of the stress on our AV counting board. But ultimately, there are going to be ongoing legacy costs with those machines. There's maintenance costs every year of a few $100s on each one under the contracts that the county has with the vendor. And at this point, I'm kind of waiting to see, how that goes. But it is possible that some of those legacy costs for elections are going to go up moving forward outside of postage.
Great, thank you very much.
Other commissioner? Commissioner Bonzo?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I'll try to be brief here, but I just wanted to ask a couple questions more for public benefit than anything else. So first, are you planning on continuing the NMU satellite office model moving forward? Because it seems like that was very successful and effective.
I do think it was very successful. I think that we might look at doing something a little more scaled down, at least next year. We've seen so far, you obviously get a much higher college population and action from a college community in general elections and in even year elections. Even from March, we had 130 or 40 people register on election day in March, which was kind of the indication that we needed to do something. So in August, we kind of set this up. We didn't have the long-term satellite office, but we did prep people. We tried to be ready for that rush on election day. And I think we had 9 people register on election day in August on same day. And then obviously, now you're back in session in November, it's a presidential election and we had 150. So looking forward from here, I would anticipate, trying to work with Northern and ASNMU a bit next year, but probably I wouldn't be requesting that we establish an office for next year. The following year though, it's pretty likely, I would say.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense to me. I think certainly doing it again for the midterm in 22, I think would make sense, but yeah, I think that you're right that maybe it would be a little bit overkill in the off-year elections. And then I just had 3 real quick questions. Should be pretty simple. Just again, mostly for public benefit. So number 1, so you mentioned the public accuracy test for our local voting equipment. Did that all go off without a hitch for the November election?
It did, yep. And actually, we always joke that it is a public meeting. Anybody's welcome. This is the first one, I think, that members of the public actually came to. But yes, everything was fine.
Okay, great. Well, that's good to hear. And when you mail out absentee ballot applications to the permanent absentee list, those are applications to vote. You're not automatically mailing ballots to people, correct?
That is correct. It's a two-step process in the state of Michigan. You have to submit an application to us requesting that we give or send you a ballot, which we'll do. You can automate the first step of the process. So you can automate us sending you an application, which you can then disregard or use to ask for a ballot.
Great. And then the last thing I just wanted to ask is, there's no reason to believe that absentee ballots in the city of Marquette or otherwise are less secure, or more open to fraud than ballots that are cast in person. Would that be correct?
That is correct.
Okay, great. Thank you, Kyle. I appreciate it.
Any other commissioners? Questions, discussion? Commissioner Stonehouse.
Kyle, I think I heard in the presentation that Northern had charged us a fee to set up the station at the university.
They did, yeah. So it was a room rental in the lower floor of the university center next to the student government office, and it was a friendly NMU nonprofit rate. But yes, we did pay.
Don't you think that's a little unconscionable considering the service we're doing to their students?
I just asked them what the rate was.
I would suggest that we consider when time comes to do this again, that if they're not willing to provide the space for us to do this service, we don't do it. I mean, Northern's got to take a step to shake our hand. They've got to step forward a little bit and take some ownership of the process. And they clearly are not doing that, regardless of whatever nonprofit rate they're giving us. We are doing a service for their students. We should not have to pay money to do a service for their students. At least that's my opinion. Thank you.
Commissioner Davis?
Yes, Kyle, thank you for leading us through, in your words, strange election year and probably a little more stressful than others. And may your future ones be less strange, but then maybe they'll be more boring. I was intrigued by the chart with the ages of the voter turnout. And the 60+ voters obviously represented the majority of the voters. And then the 22 to 30, thank you. The 22 to 30 age group represented the second largest group of voters. But and I suspect that that's because of the satellite, or a good amount of it is because of the satellite office at Northern. But I think that chart would look real different if we took that 60 and over age group and separated to the 60-year-olds, the 70-year-olds, the 80-year-olds, and the 90 and over. And I'd be curious to see what that would look like in that sense. And it perhaps gives us some insight into those who vote, and maybe, again, this might have been a very unusual election year, but it also is a little bit of an indication of our demographics in Marquette. The median age of people in Marquette City right now is considered to be 28, and in the state, it's close to 40. And I don't know what that the new census will do to that number, but those kind of demographics for our city, as well as the information that the Planning Commission gave us on what their concerns are for next year, are the things that we as commissioners need to keep in mind as we look at next year and our strategic planning process. So it's just a comment to maybe take that chart and make it look a little different. Just keeping, I think the 6-year-olds are actually pretty young people. But separating that out in the 10-year increments that you do with the other groups.
Yeah, I really like data and numbers. I find it interesting. I will say I'm not putting a whole lot of work into that chart, and I'm just using the data that the state provides. So those are the demographics that they separated out into. conceivably we would have access to that data on some level, but the state basically pushes out a chart for voter turnout after every election, and those are the separations that they use.
Okay, understand. And I don't know as if it's worth doing any extra work on it, but just something to think about.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other commissioners? Commissioner Mayer?
Thank you, Your Honor, and thank you, Kyle, and all of your team for doing an outstanding job this year. I was waiting on Wednesday morning trying to stay up to see the results come in, and I think about 15 minutes after I fell asleep, someone called me because the results were up. But I think one positive thing that this election in 2020 has brought us, at least, is the general public's understanding of all the complexities that our local election officials do to protect our democracy and the whole process that goes with it. I had a discussion with a family member that couldn't believe I was voting absentee, and I explained to him that I've actually been a poll challenger before, and I've seen all the steps that go into this. And I don't know if they were convinced, but still, it's awesome. I think the general public's overall knowledge now from all of this and the outstanding work you guys did is fantastic. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Commissioner Hanley?
I do have to echo that same sentiment. Thank you, Mayor. That it's amazing to see how nice and smooth Marquette ran, even with all the craziness nationally and everyone questioning it. It was nice to see a nice smooth run. I'm sure on your side as well. It's nice to see that. I do want to point out, and it's not to disagree completely, but I disagree a little bit with Commissioner Stonehouse. Even with NMU charging, if they were to charge us, I think we should continue that office. It was an amazing office. We need to be increasing the access to the vote to absolutely everyone in our city, no matter what. And I think that office went very far to do just that. And yes, NMU should work with us, and I agree we should ask, but even if they don't, we need to make sure that we're not letting the student population be underserved on helping get them to the vote.
I believe the commissioners have all had a chance to talk. Oh, Commissioner Bonzo, you have one other thing?
Yeah, I just wanted to, something I meant to mention before, but I forgot, and I think it's probably relevant to Commissioner Hanley's comment there, is that I was actually pretty impressed and, heartened by the fact that actually, when you look at that little chart that Commissioner Davis mentioned, that it appears at least that while of course the over 60 demographic had a very high voting rate, that actually it seems like as a percentage, like the highest voting rate in terms of the percentage of that age group's population that voted was actually voters ages 18 to 21, which I think is pretty awesome.
Definitely some interesting data there. Thank you, Commissioner Bonzo. Thank you, Kyle. Certainly appreciate all the work you've done. And I think we can't go without saying that you've taken on the role of city clerk this year that is new to you, and you've done a tremendous job as we knew that you would. It's been a difficult year. It would have been difficult even without COVID, with a challenging presidential election with a lot of people wanting to vote. But then you had to throw COVID in the mix and changing how we do things and getting out there in a different way, and appreciate you being up to the task and looking forward to seeing what you do in future years when maybe there aren't as many things to be, putting out fires and dealing with. So thank you, Kyle. Appreciate the work you, your staff, and the election board do.
Yeah, thank you. We're also looking forward to that.
I bet. Okay. We are going to continue on here in the meeting. We're finally out of the presentation section, an hour and 18 minutes later. We're moving on to item number 4, consent agenda. Commissioners, do we have a motion? Commissioner Hanley?
I move to approve the consent agenda as written.
And do we have a second? Commissioner Mayer?
Second that.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say yes.
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 This is a roll call, Your Honor.
Thank you, City Clerk. Take that back. City Clerk, could we please have a roll call vote?
Commissioner Bonzo,
Yes.
Commissioner Davis,
Yes.
Commissioner Hanley,
Yes.
Commissioner Mayer,
Yes.
Commissioner Stonehouse,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hill,
Yes.
and Mayor Smith.
Yes. Motion passes 7-0. Thank you. Moving on to unfinished business, item number 5, resolution for the addition of a section of East Baraga Avenue to the local street system, and this is also a roll call vote. City Clerk, could you please read the background for us?
Thank you, Mayor. Baraga Avenue east of Lakeshore Boulevard was recently extended. The road utilizes both existing city-owned property and recently purchased property. The City of Marquette receives shared gas tax revenue for the street system through Michigan Public Act 51 of 1951, Act 51. In order to receive Act 51 funding for a new street, the City Commission must pass a resolution to include it in the street administrator's, the city engineer's, annual report to the state of Michigan. The total length being added to our local street system is 469.93 feet. Fiscal effect, the City of Marquette will receive an additional $387 annually in Act 51 revenue for the addition of this section of street into our local street system. Recommendation, authorize the city clerk to sign the attached resolution to add East Baraga Avenue, starting at the intersection of East Baraga Avenue and Lakeshore Boulevard and ending 469.93 feet to the east. This will include all city public utilities that will service all new development. Alternatives as determined by the commission.
Commissioners, do we have a motion? Mayor Pro Tem Hill?
I move that we authorize the city clerk to sign the attached resolution to add East Baraga Avenue, starting at the intersection of East Baraga Avenue and Lakeshore Boulevard and ending 469.93 feet to the east.
And do we have a second? Commissioner Bonzo?
I'll second that motion.
Pro Tem Hill, any discussion?
I want to commend whoever measured East Baraga Avenue and wondered if I could borrow their ruler at some point in the future.
Commissioner Bonzo, anything to add?
I was going to say something along the same lines, but only to be a smart ass in this meeting. So.
Any additional discussion, Commissioners? City Clerk, could we please have a roll call vote?
Commissioner Bonzal,
Yes.
Commissioner Davis,
Yes.
Commissioner Hanley,
Yes.
Commissioner Mayer,
Yes.
Commissioner Stonehouse,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Hill,
Yes.
and Mayor Smith.
Yes. Motion passes 7-0. Brings us to our second public comment session of the evening. Public comments may not exceed 3 minutes per person. Please clearly state your name and physical address. And we do not have anyone for public comment in the audience. Ron Keith, any public comments you want to give tonight? Okay, he doesn't want to be a member of the public tonight. Public comment is now closed. Brings us to comments from the commission. We'll start things off with Mayor Pro Tem Hill.
Thank you. Here on the last meeting of 2020, I want to thank the city staff who are behind the scenes, making sure that we have been up and running through this incredible year. They have been doing a tremendous job, and we are here as for oversight and comments and interacting with the public. But just the incredible work done by the city staff over the past year has been phenomenal. I am very grateful. I know that many residents I've talked to say the same thing to me and really appreciate their service. And as we have evolved and changed and back and forth and all the things that have happened this year. I also want to say that the past 2 weeks have, 2 weeks ago, I got a phone call from the Marquette Algebra Resolution Service about the possibility of folks being evicted at the end of the year, which set off a chain of events that led to, I think, a real awakening in a lot of people of the housing situation that we have in this community. I think folks knew we have a lot of tremendous service agencies in this community, volunteers and professionals. They've really come together. We do finally have the funding coming, it looks like, from the federal level. That happened just today. but these, going forward post-COVID, we know that we have a lot of work to do to help support the folks that are most vulnerable now, and the folks who may have actually been in pretty good shape before COVID, but are now having endured these months of tremendous uncertainty. And that's even if you're healthy, let alone if someone got sick. So I'm ready to really get to work next year as we focus on creating and helping the city get through, creating new opportunities in the city post-COVID, and how we can protect our residents and businesses, and make sure that we can come out of this in ways that will actually improve and not just go back to what was. So happy solstice, happy holidays, and thank you, everyone.
Commissioner Mayer?
Thank you, Your Honor. You know, it's been a year, to say the least. And it's crazy to think that at the end of the year, the Christmas present that everyone got was Congress actually passing something to help, like, all Americans. Not gonna lie, I wasn't holding my breath on that, but I guess it happened. I encourage everyone to go and actually take the time to read some of the outline of what's included in that. I haven't got a chance to go super in depth with it, so I'm not going to say anything for just public info. But I also would like to thank our city staff for all the hard work they've done this year. This has been just a crazy year, and I can't even imagine the amount of work you've all put into this. And I'd like to also thank all my colleagues here on the commission for being here and serving on the commission despite the rather interesting times we're living in. So thank you, everyone.
Commissioner Stonehouse?
Yes, Your Honor, thank you. Got to ask everybody, like I try and do after every meeting, is to, we may have vaccine on the horizon and galloping in, but we've still got to keep the mask on. We've still got to keep social distance. We still have to wash our hands and do all the things that are going to keep us alive until we finally have an opportunity to get our chance for the vaccine. So please, everybody, do that. Great presentation from the PC tonight, the Planning Commission. Glad to see it. Glad to see the potential of doing something with the bus line in the city. Thanks again to Ron Keith for all his service to the city and all he's meant to us and the value that he's given our citizens. And thanks finally to the Congress for giving us a federal COVID bill, and certainly to the state of Michigan too, where the legislature finally got together with the governor and have another $500 million, give or take, bill that is covering much the same ground. So badly needed both of them, and very good to see happen. And lastly, Merry Christmas to everybody, and please have a safe New Year. Thank you, Your Honor.
Commissioner Bonzo?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I also want to reiterate that I really appreciated the presentation from the Planning Commission. I agree with many of the policies and the recommendations that they made in their presentation tonight and that they're considering. And looking forward to hopefully participating in some upcoming work sessions with them, both at the commission level as well as on the ad hoc housing committee in the coming months here. And I think also I'm really glad that Chair Cardillo mentioned the statewide goal to attain carbon neutrality by 2050. And I think that it's not only a very achievable goal at given the current pace of technological and economic change going on in the country and the world, and not just achievable at the state level, but also I think it's something that's achievable at the local level here in the UP and in the Marquette area as well. And so I would really like to see us have more serious dialogue about that and what role we want to play in supporting that goal. And then, of course, we have three new, as she mentioned, there's going to be 3 vacancies in the Planning Commission in the coming weeks and months here. And I think it's incredibly important that all of us are thinking about, who are our, friends or, city residents and, local, notable, people who have taken an active role in the community or who might be able to provide a valuable, fresh perspective, who would do a good job of serving on the Planning Commission. And maybe try to get them engaged. So I think that's something to be aware of as well. I hope that everybody, who's watching the meeting tonight might consider applying. I ought to serve on the Planning Commission. I also want to extend a couple of thank yous. First of all, thank you to Room at the Inn and local hotels and motels who've been accepting homeless folks in our community and housing them during the current COVID-19 or the recent COVID-19 outbreak at the Warming Center. Incredibly important service that was being provided there. And I think that everybody involved did a really great job of adjusting to a very difficult situation. I want to thank Vangos. I participated in a fundraiser they did recently for the Tom Baldini Scholarship Fund, which is, an annual scholarship given out to graduating high school seniors interested in public service by the Marquette Area Public Schools Education Foundation. From what I heard, they raised a couple $1,000s, which is great. And I also just want to note the state and federal COVID relief bills that passed, and want to thank everybody that was involved in making that possible. I know that, like Mayor Pro Tem Hill mentioned, CAM and Market Elder Resolution Services actually serve on the board of MARS. Have been very involved in administering the eviction diversion program over the last several months. And I also was really impressed by the responsiveness of state leaders. I got calls back from most of the state legislators that I contacted supporting COVID relief, especially for like rent and evictions and things like that. And also got responses from federal staff members as well. So that was really heartening to see. Especially want to give a shout out to Representative Cambenzi. State Representative Sarah Cambenzi personally called me back and we had a good conversation, like within a few minutes of me leaving her a message. So just wanted to note that. And as Mayor Pro Tem Hill noted, it seems like the looming eviction crisis has, at least for the moment, been headed off. We're going to have a nationwide residential eviction moratorium extended through January 31st, and $25 billion being distributed nationwide. Based on some of the conversations I've had, there's reason to believe that not only will the current funding for the eviction diversion program in Marquette be extended, but may actually be increased. So that's really great to hear. And I was also, as one last note, I was really glad to see that the state extended the Open Meetings Act so we can keep meeting virtually, extended water shutoff moratoriums, and also passed the summer tax deferral bill. So all of which I think will help people continue to survive through these really difficult times. And last but not least, I just wanted to provide a quick update on the Ad Hoc Housing Committee. So, to my colleagues, I think you can all look forward to getting a report by the deadline of January 15th. City staff are working on it right now. We're going to be meeting on January 12th and approving that report, which will then be forwarded on to the commission no later than January 15th. And at some point, hopefully in the next few weeks after that, we can perhaps get a presentation on the agenda so that city staff and I are able to come in and share some of our recommendations with you all and answer any questions you might have. So thank you for your continued support for that effort. And at least our initial report will be coming out and be available to you within a month.
Commissioner Davis.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Smith. I've received several communications requesting the opening of Lakeview Arena, and I can understand the frustration of those that want their youth to be skating, whether it's hockey or whether it's figure skating. It's also important that we as the city comply with the state orders. And for this reason, this is when Ron isn't done working yet until the 31st, and this is when our city attorney earns some of his keep. But I've asked the city manager to address the opening of Lakeview Arena in his comments. And other than that, happy holidays, everyone.
Thank you, Commissioner Davis. We've got Ron looking a little nervous over there. It's hard to tell with the mask on. And Commissioner Hanley, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wanted to echo what a bunch of the other commissioners have already said and say that the two presentations we were given today were both very educational for me and great for everyone to see exactly what goes on behind the scenes in our city and how things are going. I do want to point out, it has to do with the Children's Museum. Their fundraiser this year was not quite as profitable as it normally is. Their big auction that they do. And so to help them, Stucco's is doing an awesome fundraiser for the next 2 days, both tomorrow and Wednesday. Anytime you order to go from Stucco's and then tip any of their bartenders, they are going to match whatever tip you give their bartenders up to $3,000 to donate to the Children's Museum, which not only helps the service industry folks that have been a little harder hit on tips, but it also helps the Children's Museum to get a little bit more money and to increase that auction money that they missed out on because of COVID and having to do an all online auction this time. I just wanted to point out, if anyone's interested, to call Stucco's for the next 2 days. They're open 11 to 9, both the days, I believe, and you can order and help the Children's Museum at the same time. Other than that, I just want to wish everyone a happy and safe holidays. Please remember to wear your masks, and if you are meeting with family, keep your masks on. As hard as it is, it's just, we have to keep everyone safe, and this is one of those times where we could cause mass spread if we're not careful. So happy holidays.
Well, a couple things I wanted to cover tonight is I think it's really exciting and remarkable to see the vaccine rollout happening right here in Marquette County. And I know several people who've been vaccinated already, and that's just going to keep increasing. So we said it last meeting, but you know, the light is really at the end of the tunnel. We're going to start to see that number grow of vaccinations. And we are, our paramedics here at the city of Marquette, I believe, will be getting vaccinated sometime this week. I've asked the city manager to give us an update on that in his comments, which is very exciting here for the city of Marquette. And, you know, Mayor Pro Tem Hill, thank you for the chance to kind of reflect on 2020. I appreciate you kind of teed up some of our comments. That way you did a nice job this evening, and I'm going to chime in there as well. Just wishing city staff, all of my fellow commissioners, and even the greater public some chance to take a break over the holidays. You know, maybe just kind of hit the reset button, spend time with family, whether that's people in your own household or on Zoom, on the phone, or, you know, some creative outdoor gatherings. And I hope that you all have a chance to reflect on the challenges we've had in 2020 and then think about the possibilities we have as we roll into 2021. I know we've got a lot of important issues here at the city of Marquette that we're going to be addressing in the coming year, and I look forward to working with the commissioners and staff to make that happen. I think it's going to be an exciting year. We're going to be able to get a lot done, and I think we've got momentum behind us with COVID hopefully widening down. So a lot to look forward to. That's all I have. That brings us to comments from our city manager this evening. And I'm going to turn my screen around so you can see him. Hold on one second. I don't know how I can.
Perfect. If I get this close, I'll put my mask on.
No, you're like 10 feet apart. We're good.
All right. Yes, our firefighter paramedics will be receiving their shots, their first vaccine shots tomorrow is when they're scheduled. I'll inform the commission if in fact that does happen. With regard to the hockey or the ice arena, and to give Ron a break here, we conferred with Suzanne Larson about the interpretation of the current HHS order regarding arenas. And her interpretation, and staff agrees, is that the arena or the ice facilities cannot open up for just general practices, general use. It has to be limitations based on one-on-one coaching and things of that nature. I have received information that there are arenas in the Upper Peninsula that are open. However, to the best of our knowledge, they are operating in violation of the order, which we choose not to do. We have extended different options to the hockey community as far as using the arena and following the order. However, those I don't think are going to work out because they're just not conducive to what the hockey community wants to accomplish. Figure skating is has put themselves in a pause until January 3rd, when they hope to come back to the arena, utilizing the ice under the COVID rules as we interpret them. So they are ready to go if needed. We do have a plan in place that should the order be lifted, that we can begin the hockey season or begin the hockey use of the arena at a moment's notice. So we're ready to go as soon as the order is lifted and we have the ability to let the hockey players have the ice in the fashion that they want to. I'd also like to mention that we closed this week on the sale of parcel 13 to NTN. That is complete now. For those commissioners that may not be aware, we also have a use management agreement with NTN for them to manage the Heartwood property as far as biking trails and things of that nature. So that whole process is complete. We did also close on the Customs House or the Baraga Avenue property purchase, which was obvious by tonight's action because we converted that street to a city right-of-way. So that property sale did go through. We have one more that is kind of lagging, and this is informational for the commission. Parcel 2A, which is the Founders Landing parcel with home renewal systems. We've had several extensions to that due diligence. They are ready to close. We are ready to close on that. However, we ran into a little bit of a snag with the development agreement. And by that, I mean, the commission approved the development agreement a long time ago, but at that time, it was a joint development between, including HRS and the hotel people. At some point, HRS split off from the hotel people. The commission approved the hotel development agreement independently, and it slipped through the cracks to approve the home renewal systems development agreement at the same time. So it's still the same agreement or still the same development agreement that we had in the beginning. It's just that it needs to be approved by the commission separately before we can move on closing on that property. HRS is ready to close. We hope to bring that to the commission in the first meeting in January. And just for background, the sale price of that property was just shy of $500,000. So it is a significant sale for the city, a significant income that'll really help our reserves. So within the next month, we should have all these properties closed. And I have to thank Sean. He's learned more about real estate in the last few months than most of us will ever know. So, but that's all I have. Thanks.
All right.